My first spot is so dumb, completely broken, and to make it even worse, it's literally located under Hercules' skirt, right between his cheeks, at 20.5 and 82.5. But seriously, this spot is insane. It's way bigger than anything that should exist in a location like this. And here's the insane part. From inside the skirt, you can shoot to the outside, but from the outside, nobody can shoot at the inside. Let me repeat that. You can place turrets that fire outward, completely hidden, while absolutely nothing can fire back at you, which is straight up busted. There is enough space for 2 to 3 players, and you can easily place a crafting area, and you can also place medium-sized creatures such as Ankylos, Stegos, Meguanos or Trikes. I was asked, hey Frodo, what is the best rathole on Astraeos? And that's why I was on the search for unraidable base locations. These spots are so good that people can only raid you by meshing. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you ratholes that are so good, no one will ever want to raid you. Hello Dodo crew and welcome back to another video on Ark Survival Ascended. Grab a bottle of water and let's get straight into it. Number 2 is a large rathole located at 12.9 and 73.1. The entrance is relatively large, but it can be defended super well with turrets, as its size allows you to build very well in the back of the spot. Stegos and Trikes cannot enter the spot, and players have to drop into the rathole. This makes it relatively easy to defend despite its size. The biggest problem is rockets on a Pteranodon or a Quetzal build. This makes it incredibly important that you only build there if you already have tech turrets. The spot is ideal for a small tribe of 2 or 3 players, but it's pretty tight. However, if you build a cliff, you'll have enough space for all the crafting stations and you can even fit an industrial forge into it. In the lower part of this rathole, you can breed medium-sized creatures, but you can only get them in and out with cryopods. On a side note, as of I'm editing this, I'm at about 7k subs. If you could sub to help me reaching my goal of 10k subs by the end of the year, I would greatly appreciate it. The third rathole is a small rathole at 13.1 and 72.9. However, it has enough space for a smithy, cryo fridges and chests in which you can hide your loot. Even though Stegos, Trikes and other creatures cannot be used to soak the rathole and players can only drop in, it is still only good for the start of a wipe. Even though the entrance is very easy to defend and super small, the rathole is only suitable for 1 or a maximum of 2 players for a short time due to its size. You can forget about breeding. There is simply not enough space for that. I think the rathole is really good when you use it as an outpost, FOB or to hide some loot and PvP kits. Spot number 4 is much better, and it's really funny to build your base in this rathole. There's room for about 2 players and you can build all the crafting stations you need. You only need to set up a handful of foundations and you'll have enough space for most of the stuff you need to get started. With a few turrets, the entrance is very well defended, and if you put a small teleporter in the base, it's actually a perfect spot for an FOB. However, I believe that the spot can be found quite fast and is therefore only suitable for the start of a wipe or for raiding. My spot number 5 is at 11.3 and 74.4. It's the first ceiling rathole and really big for how easy it is to defend. A few turrets on the ceiling will be enough to defend your base, and attackers will have to prepare for a nasty raid because it will be hard to get into your base. There's actually enough space for a proper tribe. It gets a bit cramped, but you can easily fit 2 to 3 players in the rathole, if not more. You can easily fit a small crafting area in the rathole and you can breed medium-sized creatures such as Trikes and Stegos. However, it will get quite cramped when breeding. Rathole number 6 at 12.1 and 73.8 is actually just a small crack in the ceiling, but it's big enough to hide a small base with a smithy, fabricator or some chests for the start of your wipe. Until you find a bigger spot. You can't breed anything in this crack, but if you set up your forges along the entire length, you can burn a good amount of metal while hiding on your new cluster for the first few days. Unfortunately, you can't take your tribe mates with you, because there's simply not enough space for more than 1 person in this gap. And more than 2 players will have real problems running around. But you can defend your crafting area really well with just 1 or 2 turrets, as you can only get to this spot with a flyer. One of the best locations on the entire map is my number 7 at 8.4 and 70.8. It is one of the smaller caves on Limnokis and is perfect for large PvP builds. Even though the entrance is a bit larger and can be run with trikes and stegos, there is enough space to place an insane amount of turrets in the corridors. In the front of the cave itself, we've got a perfect spot to place some turret towers, which you can use to defend the cave for the whole wipe. The cave itself has a huge room where you can build anything you want, whether it is a crafting area, a breeding pen or just a FOB. There is enough space for a massive base in this cave. It's certainly one of the largest locations on this list and is more suitable for tribes with a duo, trio or even larger groups. The biggest problem is actually the size itself, because the cave is so large and the entrance is also big enough to fit stegos and other creatures. This means it's certainly not suited for the early game, but it's for sure good for a main base in the late game and might be a great location for a farm base in the north of the map, as it is very close to several important resources and the aberration zone on Astraeos. Number 8 at 8.3 and 78 is a small crack above the entrance to the cave we had at number 7. It is super well suited for the early game and can be used to store some resources as a FOB or just as a place to teleport to in order to get around the map. It's actually quite well hidden and can be defended with a few turrets. You can also use it as a trap to shoot unsuspecting players away from their megawanas with a few turrets. The problem is that you can't really build there, as the location can be attacked quite easily with Quetzals, PTs or other creatures once it has been found. It is suitable for the early game, but certainly not for breeding creatures or building up a large base. However, it might be good for farming resources, as it's very close to several important resources and the aberration zone on Astraeos is nearby, and once you have a teleporter, you can easily bring a large amount of resources from there to your main base. Number 9 is a medium-sized rathole, located at 7.2 and 70.1. The entrance is quite large, but I still find it fairly easy to defend. This spot is well suited for solo or duo players, as you can already get around quite well in this rathole. The rathole itself is a solid pick for you, especially in the early game, as you can hide medium-sized creatures such as Ankylos or Archers, or farm a ton of resources in the area around that rathole. It will probably be a bit cramped when breeding larger creatures, but you should be able to manage it and raise your first few lines. Using some foundations, you can make some space to place a good amount of forges and camp benches, and a few heavies and tanks at the entrance should keep most opponents busy. However, since the entrance is quite large, the rathole can probably be raided quite easily with a Quetz, so you should use the rathole in the early game until you have moved to a slightly larger or safer one. Within waterfalls, you can easily hide small bases. Most waterfalls prevent structures behind them from being rendered, and similar to Valguero, they are so loud that you cannot hear a single crafting station. Such waterfalls are in super hidden locations on most maps, and I have to say they are usually the bases that stay up the longest during a wipe because they simply don't get discovered. So if you need to find a base spot and can't find a rathole, just try building behind one of these waterfalls and you will see it actually works quite well. Number 10 is a small rathole located at 7.5 and 70.6. The entrance is fairly large, but I still find it very easy to defend. This spot works well for solo players and is a solid choice, especially in the early game. It will probably feel a bit cramped, but you should be able to set up some crafting stations and spend your first few days in this rathole without any major issues. With a few foundations, you can create enough space to fit a good number of forges and camp benches, and a couple of heavies and tanks at the entrance should keep most attackers at bay. However, because the entrance is quite large, the rathole can be raided fairly easy with a Quetz. Overall, this rathole is best used in the early game until you can move to a slightly larger or better location. I hope you liked this video and feel to read if this video has helped you. Hit the like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm and consider subbing to the channel. Alright, Frodo.